component of understanding corrective consequence. And corrective consequence is this notion that it's the task that I want to avoid or the thing I don't want to do that's causing me to do the behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And so we focus on identifying what is it that is that's catching me up? What is it that's making me not want to do the task? Is it because math is actually really hard for me and I don't understand the concept? So anytime it's math class, I, decide that I'm going to do anything I can to get out of that task. And then we focus on putting the corrective consequence in place. So front loading, whether it's the academic support or the social emotional support on the front end, so that we reduce the behavior on the back end.
Mm. So you're pre-teaching basically what the expectations are so that it's not a surprise.
Absolutely. So much pre-teaching and explicitly teaching and explicitly telling. And so we always say we can't be mad at someone for breaking an expectation that they didn't know was an expectation. And so
Yes.
we spend a lot of time, our teaching team has been working all summer on outlining what that looks like in our classes and across our campus. And I think just the same thing in the home when we're dealing with our children. If we haven't explicitly told them they need to take their dishes and put them in rinse them off and put them in the dishwasher after dinner, and we only get frustrated when they don't do it, we're always going to be in a reactive consequence state instead of in a corrective consequence state.
Yeah, and when you're in that reaction state, you're in limbic mode. That's emotion mode. And when you're in emotion mode, you're not going to be in cognition being reason, logic, and so forth. That's your frontal lobe. That's your executive functioning. It's where thinking happens. So if you're in feeling, you're not thinking. And if you're in thinking, you're not going to be reactive. The idea is to remain calm and in our frontal lobes as often as possible so that we can educate our children, whether at home or in the classroom, about what they can expect to come, instead of when they do whatever they're going to do, because they're children, they're developmentally, behind wherever we are as adults, hopefully, then we don't have to be emotional in our response. We can be logical in our response. And that's not to say that it's going to happen every time. Lord knows, as a parent, I yell at my kids more often than I need to, but that's my fault. And I need to take ownership of that and say, well, what did I miss this time that I expected my kid to do, but failed to tell him what my expectation was? And then next time, how do I pre-teach that? And what it requires is me getting out of my own limbic state. And sometimes that limbic state is not caused by the children. Sometimes it's caused by work, or if I'm distracted by social media and there's negative headlines that I'm scrolling through, I will get frustrated. And then I look over and my kid's not doing what he's supposed to. And then I take it out on him. And that's totally unfair. That I would transplant all of this stuff that I had from wherever I brought it into the child who didn't deserve it and didn't cause it. So a lot of parental awareness needs to take place too. It's, social emotional learning is not just for children.
Right. One of my favorite examples of this is when I lived in France. I lived in a 2-story home, and my host mother kept young children during the day as part of her work. And she didn't have outlet covers. She didn't have gates at the stairs, baby gates, any of those things. And she had antiques everywhere in the house and things that the kids could access. And, I came with a lens of, well, that's not safe. You need to protect, they need to be protected from all of these things. And I came to understand that culturally, and her response was, well, I'm not teaching them to live in a baby world. I'm teaching them to live in the adult world. And so I'm teaching them from now that what is acceptable and what's not, and what's going to hurt them and what won't. And taking that lens was very interesting, and certainly not to say that we don't want to take measures to protect our young children for safety and all of that, because we absolutely do. But just this concept of setting expectations that are that important, even with very young people, and realizing that they can follow through. France, the preschool system in France is one of the top preschool systems in the entire world in terms of the expectations that they have and how students come into kindergarten. And that is exactly the philosophy, is that we're giving them all the tools and teaching them explicitly all of the expectations to live in the adult world.
That is so profound. And there's a very clear distinction to be drawn between teaching children to live in an adult world and treating them like adults. And I think that gets conflated sometimes. And out of fear, we retreat to overprotection, because we ourselves can't stand the idea that they would go through some sort of distress in learning how to interact in the adult world. And so we end up with this overprotective environment that doesn't do them any favors when they do become adults. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because we could spend hours on that topic alone, and how detrimental it is to children when you don't allow them to fail, when you don't allow them to struggle, when you pull them out of their distress too early, or you just step in front of every risk that they'll ever take, because then they become virtually incompetent as they become adults and go into work or post-secondary education or whatever it is. So really glad that you brought that up, teaching them to live in an adult world, because they're not going to live in a child's world afterward. At least we don't think they will.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Hey, so I'm aware of the time. I want to, honor what you have to do. My stomach is growling too. So out of a little bit of selfishness, I'd like to eat food before I engage in the next meeting. But I really appreciate you coming on and sharing that stuff, because we haven't really covered it much. What's one thing you would like the audience to take away, if you could give them a nugget of wisdom or an invitation to look at themselves or something like that?
I would say the most important thing is to model all of these aspects in your interactions with others. And so if I model self-management, and I model self-awareness, and I model making responsible decisions, really our students learn by our example of what we do and not by what we tell them to do. And so if they see me making responsible decisions, wearing my seatbelt, stopping at red lights, responding appropriately to conflict, that's what they're going to learn to do. And so the biggest takeaway would be educate yourself and become as aware as you can about your reactions and responses, and particularly when your children or other people's children are around, knowing that they're learning from watching your behavior.
They sure are. They sure are. That's a really important point to leave, and I think you said it well enough. I don't have to summarize. Well, Jami Curtis, thank you. If people wanted to find out more about you or Pine Crest or education in general, do you have any resources or books that you might throw out on websites? If they wanted to contact you, I don't know if you want to share that or not.
Yeah, no, feel free to visit pinecrestnnv.org. That's our school website. We have links to so many resources, videos, activities, idea sharing for managing home and school and keeping it all together. And so we have our YouTube channel linked there, Facebook, all of our social media is linked there as well. So feel free to visit our site, reach out. I'm always happy to dive a little deeper into these topics with people.
Are you still doing your Facebook Lives, and if so, how often will they continue?
Yeah, I've been doing about one or two. We've shifted from the live to recorded at this point, just so that we can reach more people. But those are ongoing. So we plan to keep the Facebook and video communication out about once every 2 weeks.
That's awesome. I think every school leader should do that. It's a great way to connect with the community. And so the Facebook page of Pine Crest is a good way to find Jami's content and hear more of what she has to say on a variety of topics, given the Q&A that's thrown her way. So thanks. Appreciate it. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of our Noggin Notes team and the Zephyr Wellness family, we wish you all great mental wellness. Take care.